Single struggling mom in the projects, high school dropout, makes millions. Scene 1, where it starts, a single struggling mom in the projects. He was raised by a single struggling mother in the projects. 4 boys, very little money, no safety net. The Lower East Side of Manhattan was not a place built for dreaming. It was a place that trained awareness, toughness, and reaction. You didn't grow up thinking about careers or long-term futures. You grew up learning how to move, how to read people, how to stay out of the wrong situations, and how to survive long enough to figure the rest out later. His mother worked constantly. There was never enough money, never extra time, never room for mistakes. Every decision mattered. Every dollar mattered. Raising 4 boys alone meant living under permanent pressure. Life wasn't planned years ahead. It was managed day to day. What mattered most was simple. Keep food on the table. Keep her son safe. Keep the family together. But she saw something forming before it turned into disaster. She saw the early signs, the fighting, the influences, the pull of the streets. In neighborhoods like that, trouble doesn't announce itself. It waits quietly, building momentum. And once it has momentum, it's hard to stop. So she didn't wait. She moved her boys out of New York. Puerto Rico was the first stop. Life didn't suddenly become easy. Money didn't magically appear. Struggle didn't disappear. But the environment slowed everything down just enough to interrupt the path they were on. It wasn't paradise. It was a pause. Then came Colorado. The moment they arrived, everything felt different. The air, the space, the silence. Streets were clean. Neighborhoods were calm. Houses felt enormous. To kids raised in the projects, even modest homes looked like mansions. They had never seen anything like it. They were stunned. They looked at their mother and asked a question that would quietly shape everything that followed. Can we stay here? Can we afford to live here? What they were really asking was whether a life like this was possible for them. That moment mattered more than they understood at the time. Because once you see something different, once your mind registers that another standard of living exists, belief starts forming on its own. Colorado wasn't just a place. It was proof. College was never part of the plan. There was no money for it, and school had never been a natural fit. Sitting still, following rigid structures, waiting years for permission to start life, didn't make sense for someone who needed to help his family immediately. So he worked, not casually, not part-time, relentlessly. 2 jobs, 3 jobs, sometimes 4 at the same time, dishwasher, fast food, moving jobs, entry-level work that demanded physical effort and long hours, jobs most people avoided, jobs most people quit. He didn't complain. He didn't treat any job as beneath him. He showed up early, worked harder than expected, and took pride in whatever he did. Reliability became his reputation. Attitude became his advantage. Managers noticed. Employers trusted him. Promotions followed, not because of education or credentials, but because he was dependable. Then came a small moment that changed everything. Business class. He wouldn't graduate, but he learned one thing that rewired how he saw the world. Starting a business didn't require permission. It didn't require a degree. It didn't require wealth. It required a business license, a registered name, a business checking account. That was it. At the time, the license cost $15. That realization shattered the ceiling. Business wasn't reserved for rich people. It wasn't reserved for college graduates. It was accessible. From that point forward, learning became intentional. Books replaced classrooms, business books, sales books, personal development, Anthony Robbins, concepts about discipline, focus, psychology, and execution. Some ideas didn't work. Some did. Enough work to believe. Enough work to try harder. Enough work to move faster than everyone else. And that belief would soon collide with opportunity. Scene 2, no degree, no safety net. When work becomes the plan, dropping out of high school didn't feel like rebellion. It felt like reality. There was no dramatic moment, no anger toward teachers, no speeches about the system being broken. School simply stopped aligning with the life he was living, sitting in classrooms, following rigid schedules, preparing for a future that required money and time he didn't have. It didn't make sense. He needed income. He needed momentum. He needed to help his family now. So he left. And work became the plan. Not part-time work. Not until something better comes along work. Real work. If one job wasn't enough, he stacked another. If two didn't cut it, he added a third. Sometimes four. Long days blurred together. Early mornings bled into late nights. Weekends disappeared, but something else replaced them. Progress, dishwasher, fast food, mover, entry-level jobs that demanded physical effort, speed, and endurance. Jobs most people avoided, jobs most people quit quickly. He didn't see them as dead ends. He saw them as training. Every job taught something different. As a dishwasher, he learned pace and discipline. In fast food, he learned efficiency under pressure. As a mover, he learned physical resilience, teamwork, and responsibility. When things went wrong, there was no one else to blame. What separated him wasn't intelligence or talent. It was care. He showed up early, stayed late, took pride in work others rushed through. He didn't wait to be told what to do. He anticipated. He solved problems before they were assigned. Reliability became his reputation. Managers noticed. Supervisors trusted him. Promotions came, not because of credentials, but because dependability is rare. But even as income increased, he understood something instinctively. Time had limits. You could only work so many hours. You could only stack so many shifts. Eventually, the math stops working. That's when the idea of business returned. Not as a dream, as leverage. He remembered the moment in business class, the one lesson that stuck. Starting a business wasn't complicated. It didn't require permission. It didn't require education or capital. It required a business license, a registered name, a business checking account. That was it. At the time, the license cost $15. $15 separated employees from owners. That realization shattered a belief he didn't know he had, that business was reserved for other people, rich people, educated people, connected people. It wasn't. So he started. Carpet cleaning, moving jobs, anything that created income. The industry didn't matter. What mattered was learning how money actually moved, how customers decided, how pricing influenced behavior, how marketing grabbed attention, how sales happened, or didn't. Some attempts failed, some barely broke even, some worked just enough to keep him moving, but every attempt taught something. He began to see patterns. People hesitated the same way, objections repeated, fear sounded similar no matter the product. He learned that sales wasn't manipulation, it was understanding. Understanding timing, understanding psychology, understanding pain and desire. Around the same time, he began reading obsessively. Books replaced classrooms. Business books, sales books, personal development, Anthony Robbins, Awaken the Giant Within, ideas about focus, discipline, psychology, and execution. Some concepts didn't translate, but some did. And when they worked in real life, something powerful happened. He believed, not blind belief, earned belief. Belief that effort applied correctly could change outcomes. Belief that he wasn't limited by background or education. Belief that he could outwork, outlearn, and outadapt most people around him. That belief changed how he showed up, and it attracted opportunity. The next phase didn't arrive quietly. It arrived as a challenge most people would avoid. A role that required movement, pressure, and responsibility. A traveling marketing manager position that demanded results without guarantees. It meant leaving comfort behind, leaving familiarity behind. But it offered something far more valuable. Exposure. Scene 3. The Road, MBA. Building companies from nothing. The road doesn't teach gently. It teaches through repetition, pressure, and consequence. Once he took the traveling marketing manager role, stability disappeared overnight. There were no familiar environments, no long-term comfort. Every few weeks meant a new city, a new market, new people, and new problems to solve. Fast. He could choose where he wanted to go. That alone felt like control. He'd pick a city, pack what he needed, and arrive with nothing but a plan and a deadline. Once there, he did the same thing every time. He walked into fitness centers, not with theory, not with promises, with an offer. He would generate a year's worth of membership sales in a single month. He would cover all the marketing costs. The owner would risk nothing. Profits would be split. No performance meant no payoff. Most people can't make that kind of offer because most people can't execute it. Once an agreement was signed, the real work began immediately. He had to find an office, fast. Then find a place to live, often negotiating trade-outs just to keep overhead low. He opened business checking accounts, ordered phone lines, secured equipment, placed help-wanted ads in newspapers, then came hiring, interviewing strangers, spotting potential quickly, hiring people with no sales experience and training them from zero, teaching them how to speak, how to listen, how to handle rejection, how to stay composed under pressure, telemarketers, sales reps, team leaders. He built sales floors from scratch. Scripts were written, tested, rewritten, messaging adjusted daily, numbers tracked obsessively. What worked stayed, what didn't disappeared immediately. There was no time for ego, only results mattered. Some campaigns exploded immediately. Others struggled at first. Markets behaved differently. Cities responded differently. People bought differently depending on season, region, and culture. What crushed in one city could fail completely in another. So he adapted. Again, and again, and again. Over the course of several years, he ran 40 to 50 full campaigns across the country. 40 to 50 complete companies, built, staffed, executed, and shut down. That kind of repetition does something irreversible. Patterns become obvious. Excuses stop sounding convincing. Problems stop looking complicated. He learned that most businesses don't fail because the product is bad. They fail because execution is sloppy. Messaging is unclear. Leadership is inconsistent. Sales teams are untrained. Accountability is missing. Owners would bring him in because things weren't working. Revenue was down. Staff was unmotivated. Marketing felt random. They assumed the solution would be complex. It almost never was. Clarify the offer. Train the team. Enforce follow-up. Track numbers daily. Momentum returned. This wasn't textbook business knowledge. This was pressure-tested execution. The kind you only get when failure costs real money, real time, and real reputation. He saw wealthy towns and poor towns, big cities and small ones, tourist-heavy markets and industrial ones. He saw how weather impacted behavior, how seasonality dictated urgency, how people in different regions trusted differently. He learned sales psychology by immersion. He learned leadership by necessity. He learned operations by building them over and over again. By the time most people were graduating college, he had already accumulated a lifetime of business exposure. Not theory, not credentials, skill. This was his MBA, not the classroom version, the real one. But the road has limits. Living out of suitcases, temporary housing, constant resets. Every success followed by another teardown. The pace that builds skill also extracts a price. Eventually, he asked himself a question he couldn't ignore. How do I get off the road without losing the edge? He didn't want to stop building. He wanted to anchor what he had learned. He wanted an industry where execution mattered more than background, where sales skill could compound without constant movement. So he researched industries, licensing requirements, education barriers, income ceilings. Most paths were still closed. College degrees required, formal education required, certifications required. Then he found it, the mortgage business. At the time, it stood out for one reason. It didn't care where you came from. It only cared if you could perform. Scene 4. When skill meets money. From Dropout to millions, the mortgage business didn't feel like a gamble. It felt inevitable. After years on the road, after building companies from nothing in city after city, he had finally found an industry that didn't care where you came from, what you looked like on paper, or what boxes you checked in the past. It cared about one thing: performance. No high school diploma required, no college degree required, no formal education barrier. Sales, communication, discipline, follow-up, execution. Everything he had spent years sharpening under pressure. When he entered the mortgage business, he didn't pretend to know everything. He learned the products, he learned the process, he respected the technical side, but what separated him immediately wasn't industry knowledge, it was people knowledge. From the beginning, he moved differently. While others waited for leads, he followed up relentlessly. While others leaned on tenure, he leaned on clarity. While others relied on scripts, he relied on understanding psychology. The results came fast. He wasn't easing into the business. He was outperforming people who had been in the industry for decades. Veterans with licenses, experience, and credentials were watching a former high school dropout close more deals, build stronger relationships, and produce at a level they couldn't touch. Some respected it, some resented it. It didn't matter. Numbers don't argue. Income jumped quickly. What started as progress turned into acceleration. He was now earning what doctors and lawyers earned. Professionals who had spent years in school, accumulated debt, and worked punishing schedules were grinding for incomes he had reached through execution. Then came moments that crystallized the transformation. He bought a house once owned by a Denver Broncos player. The kid who grew up in the projects was now living among professional athletes. Neighbors were people he used to watch on television. Not because he chased status, but because his skill set had placed him there naturally. The cars followed: a Bentley, a Porsche, a Dodge Viper, not purchases made to prove anything. They were markers along a path that had already been validated. Then came the boats: a 36-foot Maxim twin-engine cruiser, a slip at the lake, another slip in Florida, one in Arizona, where he opened offices so he could work and enjoy winters at the same time. Business and lifestyle weren't separate anymore. They were aligned. This wasn't excess for the sake of excess. It was confirmation that the system he had built, from survival to skill to execution, worked. But the real shift wasn't material. It was internal. He no longer saw success as something external or elusive. He saw it as mechanical, predictable, built from inputs anyone could understand but few were willing to sustain. Being raised by a single struggling mother didn't weaken him. It removed illusion early. There was no expectation of rescue. Responsibility arrived fast, and it stayed. Dropping out of high school didn't close doors. It forced a different route, one without validation, without permission, without guarantees, one where results mattered more than explanations. Working multiple jobs wasn't about hustle culture. It was about leverage, proving that effort, when applied without excuses, could move the needle. The road refined everything. Building companies under pressure stripped away theory. It taught what worked and what didn't. It trained instinct. It built judgment. It created competence that no classroom could replicate. When skill finally met money, it wasn't magic. It was alignment. This story isn't about beating the odds. It's about understanding that odds don't decide outcomes. Patterns do. Environment shapes belief. Belief shapes behavior. Behavior repeated becomes identity. Identity determines results. The moves from New York to Puerto Rico to Colorado weren't accidents. They were exposure. Seeing possibility before knowing how to reach it. That vision recalibrated expectations. And once expectations rise, settling becomes impossible. This documentary isn't here to impress. It's here to prove something. Somewhere right now, there's someone growing up where this story began. Single parent, tight money, limited options, being quietly told, by circumstance or by people, that success belongs to someone else. This story exists to contradict that message, not with motivation, not with slogans, with evidence. Single struggling mom in the projects. High school dropout makes millions. That's not branding. That's a sequence, and sequences can be repeated, not by everyone, but by anyone willing to stay in motion long enough for skill to compound. The documentary ends here. The process does not.